Hello humans, it's just Martine, and today we're going to be doing a writing video because I said I wanted to do more of that in 2021 and I'm inspired. So basically, I was on the treadmill trying to get my steps in because it's been raining for like 2.5 days straight. And I was listening to music, and listening to music always puts me in this certain mood. I don't actually listen to music all that often because when I do, it goes down kind of a path for me. And I feel like I'm in a music video. So then that almost always reminds me of this one book I wrote. And I wrote it during senior year of high school. And like all of my books, it does not have a title. And so its project name is Project Boy Band. A couple of things. One, I know what you're thinking. There have been so many books written about musicians and boys in bands and stuff. There's even a Sarah Dessen book that involves a band. You couldn't possibly be telling a different story. But first of all, I want you to know that writing cheesy things makes me happy. And if that's the case for you, if writing or reading or watching cheesy things makes you happy, do what makes you happy. This book made me very happy, but this book also helped me discover myself a lot because it was senior year. I had just gotten out of a relationship that was over a year long, and I was trying to find myself before I went off to college. I started writing this book, and usually when I start writing a book, it comes out of me all at once, to the point where like I have a book that I wrote in 10 days flat. They just come out of me. It's uncontrollable, and that's why it takes me a long time sometimes to start writing, because I know it's going to consume my whole life when I do. But this one I wrote more in fits and spurts, and this is the only book that I've ever successfully done that with. And so I wrote it my senior year, and there were times when it would flow more easily than others and whatever, but it ended up being this stack of pages. I know it seems very thin, but I printed it with like no margins, very tiny font, because I wanted a physical copy, but I didn't want to waste a ton of paper. So first of all, this book did help me discover a large part of who I am. It helped me a lot with that, to the point that it's own voices, which is scary in and of itself. And when I started writing it, I didn't know it was own voices, and it became own voices. So there's that. So that's why this story means so much to me. I've read the first few chapters of it since then, but that's it. I haven't read like the whole thing, and I definitely haven't read through this notebook. This notebook is interesting. This is the only book of mine that I've done this with in this way. So usually I'll free write to get in the character's mind sometimes, but I've never had a case where I religiously did it, like every day. I wrote this in fits and spurts. I tried to write some every day, but like this I did every day when I was in my most like passionate part of this project. This book is also the first book I've successfully completely written that's in dual perspective, and so I wanted them to have voices, and I had different things I wanted each voice to cover. So it says it right here, Booker and Manhattan, those are the two main characters' names, free writing journal. And I free wrote like this whole journal until the very end, where I included like inspiration pictures for the band. So I would really like to read this because like none of these words ended up in the actual manuscript, and I'm going to go in with like sticky tabs, and I'm going to tab any sections that I think like maybe I need to reconsider putting it in or something. And I also want to reread this, and I want to make notes of how I would like to tackle a rewrite in 2021, because when I think of all my projects, this is the one I want to rewrite this year. I almost rewrote this one last year, but I needed some more time to simmer because it is own voices, so it's like, it matters a lot to me. And not that my stories don't matter to me in some way. They're always about some aspect of human life that I'm really passionate about, but this one matters a lot. This is the most personal of the stories that I've written. So yeah, I'm gonna walk you through this process of rereading, thinking about rewrites, so that you can hold me accountable to actually rewrite it this year and not just sit here and read it and call it a day. Let's get into it. There are so many of these things in this notebook that I desperately want to share with you right now, but this has me laughing hysterically. It's from the girl's point of view, Manhattan, and she says, Off Balance, that's the band in the book, performance writer. Literally any food, they'll eat whatever you have because they're teenage boys, a phrase synonymous with a bottomless pit, and some water if it's not too much trouble. A typical performance writer, Fiji water chilled in a pool of frozen rose perfume, an obscure Japanese candy, 3 sleeves of saltine crackers, a tub of honey, professional massage person, masseuse, something like that, tank of fresh crab from the Bering Sea. I have this series of entries in this notebook from the girl's perspective called Stuff I've Heard Backstage. published, and they are so random but so funny, and I know some of them are from my real life at the time that I was writing this, because there's one quote, like, ice cream is the reason I believe in Jesus Christ. An adult said that in front of a bunch of high school seniors. So, like, that actually happened. But some of these things are so good. Like, if you came for help, you went to the wrong place. We are willing but completely unqualified. And are non-British people legally allowed to say bloody hell? Just really funny stuff. You can really tell how much this story helped me grow as a person when you read a line like, I'm not weak, my strength just looks different than yours. I love it. I think my absolute favorite thing to do in my writing is have characters explain why they could never be book characters. This one character says, if I lived like I was in a book, I'd make fearless choices, laugh when I realize my joy, and have a local pizzeria I'd frequent. That was emotional, and I was not even reading the book. These are all the notes I took, and honestly, I shouldn't have taken notes at all. Oh, this was golden. It's interesting because everything written in the female's perspective in this is written in verse, because after I wrote the first draft, like, I was in the middle of the first draft when I decided I might want to try that, have one perspective be verse, have one be prose, and I still don't know what I'm going to do in rewrites. Some of the verse was really pretty. Not gonna lie, I don't know if I could make it into, like, the full part of her storyline. I feel like I'm not good at poetry, and I was like, there were so many one-liners got to me, and I was just smiling and laughing so much, going like, oh. He has the same smile and gentleness, but is it even possible for a person to come back once they've gone? In my experience, someone new always comes in their place. It's the line that says, oh, the beauty of a broken heart that still beats. This notebook, it's interesting because I also dated each of the entries. So, like, I started on 12/22/2017. I wrote my last series of entries the 26th of February 2018. It is just so clear that I wrote this in senior year. All the references to steel drums and stuff, that was the year I took steel drums. Also, everything about guitars in here, I was taking guitar at the time. That's where I started playing bass. The, like, own voices thing, discovering all that. It's just, there is so much of me in this, and I'm curious how much of me is in the draft. It's already 8:30, and I know I probably shouldn't start this tonight, but I kind of want to. I'm not going to tab the draft, but I'm kind of thinking of highlighting my favorite lines, because I have this bad tendency in rewriting to not just look at this and then rewrite this in a better way, but to rewrite the whole thing, and I want to make sure I can keep some of the things I love about it. I'm just feeling so much, like, it seems unreal that these thoughts came from my mind. I just feel them so deeply, and I put them into words, and I just, how did I do that? Most days I feel like I can't write a coherent sentence or have a coherent thought. How did I do this? Okay, I think I'll read the first couple chapters and see what I'm thinking. I know very firmly that there are 4 band members in this, so it is... Wait a second. No, I named 5 in the earliest entries. I think I started with 5 band members and just dropped one of them at some point. I have no idea what's going on. But also I think it's funny that they use Twitter a lot in this story, and I only got Twitter like a month ago. Who did I think I was writing about Twitter? I just read the first 7 chapters, and that's where I'm going to stop for tonight. So far it's really interesting because I started this book kind of randomly, as I do with all of my books, and it's just interesting because I feel like I know exactly the essence of the story now, and like you can see that reflected in this rewriting, but the beginning of this first draft does not capture that because I start my first drafts not knowing anything about who I'm writing about or what I'm trying to say. So I'm interested to see if the end is more focused and more of that essence, because the beginning sure isn't, and I really don't know how to make the beginning feel like that essence, which I think is one of the reasons that I keep reading the first few chapters of this and then not rewriting it after, like I did in 2020. Because I don't know, the book that I rewrote this summer, I changed literally every word of it. Like, I rewrote it entirely, but I knew that my starting point was the right place. But I don't know the right starting place for this one, which is weird. And because it involves fame, but also a relationship that's like kind of pre-existing, just makes the timeline like really weird, and I don't really know what to do. But hopefully reading the rest of this draft will give me some ideas, because right now all I can think as I read this is like, nope, 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 nope. Whereas like I read this and I was like, yes, gotta string this essence together to make this better. But day one of whatever this is, done. Okay, so here's the deal. It's 3 p.m. the next day, and I just finished my reread of this book. So 1, it's definitely not long enough. 2, I can see the type of story I was trying to tell here, but this is going to sound weird. I feel like I mess up the relationship in some ways. Like, one of the main conflicts of this book was absolutely unforgivable in my eyes now, so that's going to be cut. And it's really funny because I definitely did start with 5 members of the band and made the mental decision to cut one out. I was like, I'll fix it in later drafts, but had forgotten and like not explicitly written that down anywhere for me to know. So it did start with 5 members and end with 4, which was weird. I don't know. I get the story I'm trying to tell here. This just isn't that story. Very funny moments though, and some moments I didn't want to end, so that should be a good indication of myself for where some scenes need to be longer. Who knows if I'll keep a single one of these scenes as they are, but I like the gist of some of them. I clearly didn't make the female protagonist come alive enough, because I really, like, it would say something describing her from the other person's perspective and I'd be like, what? So yeah, I don't know, but I think I was right that I'd prefer this if I made the female protagonist, all of her things written from her perspective, all of her chapters, if I wrote them in verse. I don't know how it's gonna go. It would be a unique and difficult challenge for me, but I like how I wrote the main male protagonist, his inner monologue, way better than I liked how I wrote hers. Hers needs verse. His is good in prose. I feel like I can't start rewriting until I know where the beginning is supposed to be, because that's the one thing I know for sure is wrong about this book, is like where it begins. In this draft, they get together really early in the draft. There's clearly history there, but I feel like the history is not explored enough to justify it. And I'd either like to infuse it with more history beforehand or make a better timeline for them falling for each other. Because you know it's not a good timeline when one of them says, I love you, and I'm like, also, there are some major things that I just didn't learn about the characters until later in the book, and that's just how I write. I write to discover, and so I need to go back and, like, foreshadow and make it clear and not be like a, wait, here are all the things that you did that went against that huge part of you. I think I'm actually going to end off this video right here with me finishing the reread of this and stuck thinking about how to make it better. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a big thumbs up and comment down below, what do you think of some of the lines I read you? What are your thoughts in general? I'd love to hear them. And subscribe for more reading, writing, and college lifestyle content. And until next time, bye humans, bye!